Hey, friends, and welcome to the Genius Way Show. I'm your host, Ben Hummell, and I'm really happy to be here with you this week, in particular, to talk about a really good subject, and that is the topic of self care. And the show's called The Psychology of Self Care. And so we're going to talk about self care in terms of how to take care of the inner self, how to take care of what's going on inside there rather than, necessarily body stuff. Okay. So, what is self care? A lot of people can hear that term and they mistake it for a type of indulgence, a type of kind of being easy on yourself, or kind of maybe even lazy. I don't know. So, for all of you overachievers out there in the audience, it is not that. It's not about overindulgence. It's not about being lazy. It's not about being overly sensitive. So, what self care is about, it has to start with an awareness of our inner world. And so, it's very easy to be aware of the outer world. It's very easy, for instance, to know that something hurts. Like, oh, I banged my knee and it hurts. And so now I've got to do something about it. Got to put ice on it, put some heat on it, rest it, and so forth. That's kind of obvious, right? And if you're not taking care of yourself on the outside, like bathing, taking care of a wound, or, washing your clothes or whatever, you can see it. People can see it. But if you're not taking care of yourself on the inside, not doing that self-care on the inside, it's not so obvious. And so attention needs to be paid to what's going on inside in the inner world. And so if you think about it, we don't spend too much time there, unless you're very aware, very conscientious, and really on a sincere inner journey on purpose. You don't really look too closely at what's going on. But meanwhile, there's an inner world going on where we are, processing feelings. We are getting, stimulus coming from the outside. We're reacting to it. We are kind of moving through our day in a certain way and expending energy, paying attention, withdrawing our attention. There's all kinds of stuff going on, not the least of which there's an entire emotional landscape going on within us that we usually don't pay attention to unless it's just really out of whack. Okay, and then we go see the psychiatrist, but or the therapist. So. But meanwhile, there's an entire inner world going on. And unless we know how to care for ourselves in that inner world, we are going to experience a couple things. Number one, you're going to experience burnout. And everybody probably knows what that feels like. And if you don't, it's important to know the signs of burnout. If you don't take care of yourself inwardly, you're going to probably feel a little bit more or a lot more exhausted, and have the idea that you shouldn't be exhausted. Our emotions, our inner world can exhaust us just as much as physical exertion, but it's kind of a different exhaustion that goes really deep. And when that kind of burnout and exhaustion from the inner world starts calling us or starts telling us, hey, there's something wrong, it's already like, way down the road to not doing the self-care. So here's a little interesting story. So in ancient Greece, in Delphi, there was a temple called the Temple of Apollo. And on the archway going into the temple, there was a few maxims, some few sayings that were written there. One of them is something that you've certainly heard of, and it's the maxim to know thyself. Okay? Everybody's heard that, and if you haven't, there it is for you. Know thyself. And, that's been taken to mean lots of things. You can do a little bit of study on that. It's been taken to mean lots of things as we, go through our historical, markers here. The latest of which is, in psychology, to know yourself, meaning know your psychology, know everything that's going on in your inner world. We trace it all the way back. And the first known use of that idea to know thyself was by a guy named Heraclitus. And Heraclitus was the guy who supposedly, came up with that. But way back then, what the original meaning of that word or that idea to know thyself is to know your limits. Know your limits. That means know, not like that you're limited, but what is your field of experience? What is your ability? What are the limits of your abilities? Right? How much energy do you have to do certain things? And so, when you're driving your car, you got a fuel gauge. It's very easy to know. It's not going to be magic for me to understand if that lever or that meter goes down below empty. I am not going to be going anywhere, whether it's gas or electric. I'm not going to be going anywhere. But within us, we somehow don't know how to read our fuel gauge. And so one of the things that Heraclitus was talking about was around self-care. It's like, what are your limits? And beyond that, what do you do to fill up your tank, to charge your battery? That's what self-care is about. How to recognize what your limitation is on any given day or any given moment, what your limitation is, and then also, how do you recharge your battery? How do you fuel yourself? How do you get that resilience to be back at a full capacity? And so that is kind of what self-care is about in a nutshell. Know your limitations, know thyself, know yourself. And I don't know why we're using Old English. Let's just say know yourself. Okay, we can speak that language. Okay, so this is the most important thing about self-care is to know what the signs are when you're needing it, and also how to do it by replenishing yourself. And I think that's like the main aspect of what Heraclitus was getting to. You know, it seems like it's all about self-wisdom and everything, and it is, but there's a practical side to it, and the practicality comes around when you need to know how to replenish your inner resources, right? And there's a lot of information on how to do this, but the know yourself part is, how do you do it for you? How is it done for you in particular? Okay, so that's one of the main things to remember here. I have an inner world that's kind of working all the time, expending energy, and I need to learn for myself what restores that energy. You know, it's not just necessarily a night's sleep. It could be lots of things that restores and replenishes your energy and your efficacy just for you. And that's really the essence of self-care. What is it for you that fills your tank, that charges your battery? Name your metaphor. So here's where we are. We know that we have from ancient times an idea to know who you are and to know your limits. And so one of the first things you do on this kind of self-care journey is to recognize when you need attention within, when your inner world needs attention. And by attention, I mean conscious attention, a conscious effort to, to take care of yourself. So why isn't self-care an indulgent thing? Why isn't that an indulgent thing? So when you take a shower, are you indulging in cleanliness? You know, when you put on fresh clothes, are you indulging in clothes? Is that a selfish thing? It's not. It's just normal. You know, it's a total normal thing. And so same thing with self-care. Self-care meaning taking care of the inner world that you own, that you live in, that pretty much nobody else can see except for you. knowing what it takes for you to take care of that place is again not selfishness or laziness. It's just smart. It is smart living. It's intelligence. It's wisdom. Okay, and so we're going to get into a little bit later how we do these things. I'm going to give you a bunch of techniques and some ways to practice being aware of your inner state, and then learning how to provide yourself with the things that are important to have, a reservoir of self energy, of a reservoir of something really healthy for you to kind of move about your world in. So, to illustrate this point, one of the things that is important in terms of self care is to be able to literally have time to just play and kind of do nothing special in kind of an unstructured way. And the reason why that's important is because all the time life is going on. Sitting here at my desk, I'm looking at my window. There's these beautiful plants and trees out there. There's a world happening that's unstructured. The tree doesn't have a schedule other than to, just kind of be here in the sun, do my photosynthesis thing, lose the leaves, and then gain the leaves again. I mean, it's a very slow, kind of unstructured kind of way to go. We are part of that. We have that kind of unstructured time as well, but we never, rarely do we take advantage of that and kind of drop into that on purpose because, we're so agenda driven. We're so schedule driven. So part of self care is to move into the unstructured aspect of our lives on purpose for a little while. That's very, very, very important. So I'm going to show you this little video clip here, which illustrates this point. And this is one of the Karate Kid movies. It's a clip from that. And in this clip, you're going to see an example of just kind of being in a place where you can drop into the non-structured time and spontaneity and just living. When was the last time that you were one of those monks just having a good time? When is the last time you took the time to do that? Because, if we don't do that, if we don't just play, just drop in to an unstructured time just because we're alive, we're missing something, very, very important. And this is not like, again, it's not an indulgence thing. It's all part of taking care of the inner world, which is really kind of what drives the outer world. Let's face it. Okay. So there are two kinds of selfishness here in the world. One selfishness you kind of know about, when everything's about yourself, there's kind of narcissism, when somebody tells a story and then you try to add into it, they will then say, oh yeah, I did that too. There's a selfishness that's all about the personality, right? There's also a different type of selfishness that is healthy, and that is to be aware that you have a self that needs to be cared for on a very, very deep level, and that there's an inner world that this self lives in that needs to be maintained, that it needs to be, needs to be cared for and resourced and, really, really paid attention to. And so the good kind of selfishness means that you take the time to make sure that you are in good shape on the inside. And so we can look at, let's look at the psychology of it. If you're experiencing depression or anxiety or any number of things that, I work on with people every day, you obviously, if you can recognize it, there's a list of symptoms. You can look at the DSM-5. There's a list of symptoms for every kind of thing. And I wouldn't recommend looking in there because you're going to find yourself on every other page. Everybody does. But my point is there's a way to see that these certain symptoms are a pointer that there's something not working correctly on the inside. And a lot of those things, a lot of those symptoms become alleviated or lessened or disappear simply by becoming aware of the inner world more. Okay? Just by becoming aware of it, just checking in with yourself on how you're experiencing something. So, for instance, let's say you go to work and part of your work is mind numbing, and you're there and you're like, oh my God, So, I understand that, if your job is boring, you might feel kind of tired at work. But how you're experiencing that work has to do not just with what you have to do, but how you're approaching it and how much resources you have when you're approaching your work. Like, for instance, if I go to work and I haven't done kind of my morning orientation, where what I do, and we're going to go into this later, but I kind of resource myself before I even talk to any clients to make sure that my battery is charged, my tank is full, and I'm meeting the day and meeting those people that I work with like full resources, right? Because during the day, our resources and even our inner resources get depleted. How do they do that? Let's say you're working at a job where you're, working with people in some way. Somebody says something maybe offensive, something gets your feelings hurt. Maybe you get excited about this one thing, you get kind of bummed out about this other news. And meanwhile, we're having this inner experience all day long. And after a while, our energy, the energy with which we do our work, gets kind of drained. And so, besides going home and becoming unconscious and going to sleep and recharging in that way, which is kind of, important, obviously, eating right, there's also things that you can do to replenish yourself during the day in terms of psychological energy and psychological care. And so the good kind of selfishness means I'm aware that I have a self and that during the day, that self can kind of run out of energy throughout that long day. And I need to do things to replenish it, just like not just overnight, but during the day itself. So one of the things you can do is take a very, really quick meditation break during the day. And what I mean by meditation, I like to use the Vipassana type of meditation, where you have something that you're focusing on. What I focus on is my breath going in and out of my nostrils. And every time that I have a thought, or I feel weak, or I feel anything, I come back to that sensation of the breath going in. So basically, if you work at a desk, you take a few minutes during the day, and with the idea of recharging your battery, and you just kind of go in, focus on your breath, see whatever thoughts that are happening or emotions that you're carrying from, the earlier part of the day, and just watch them kind of moving away, moving through your field, right? And keep whatever you think of, whatever you feel, keep coming back to that sensation of the breath going in and out of your nostrils. Use that as your focal point. And if you do that for a few minutes, what you'll see is that you're no longer carrying those experiences from the earlier part of the day, and that your energy level is going to rise. This will definitely happen. And I'm not talking about physical stamina, I'm talking about the psychological effect of emptying out the early experiences of the day and getting back to a sense of wholeness by emptying out what you've got there. We hold on to residual experiences, the residual effects of the experiences we have during the day. And depending on what happens that day, we have, whatever amount of energy left at the end. But if you can take a couple breaks during the day, just for that unstructured time, meditation is not about doing anything. Meditation is the opposite of doing, the meditation that I'm talking about. And so if you can take a couple breaks like that to just stop doing, stop efforting, you can let go of whatever you've collected during the day and then kind of be fresh again. That's one way to do it. And again, that's the healthy kind of selfishness. Like, I have a self and I'm going to take care of it. I have a self and I'm going to make sure that just like I wear clean clothes and I bathe and I take care of my physical health, I'm going to take care of my mental health and my emotional health and my inner health just as much. Because even though other people can't really see it, I can feel it and I can experience it, right? And when you are resourced in that way, when you get really good at taking care of that inner self, that inner state, that inner world, it reflects in everything that you do. Everyone that you come in contact gets affected by it. Your work is that much better. You are, you know how to fill your tank. You know how to spend unstructured time. And I guarantee your experience during the day is going to be much better. And in one way, you got to see it's kind of insane if we just take care of the outer and then move through our day and expect everything to be great. You know, it's really important to like be aware of that inner world and know that it needs as much care or more than the outer world does. Okay, so here's one thing I wanted to share with you too. We it's important to like first thing in the morning. This is a really beautiful thing to do. When you open your eyes, you know, a lot of us have gotten into the habit of grabbing our phone or grabbing something to read or doing something really quickly. But what I want to suggest is just take a few moments in the morning, open your eyes or keep them closed, and just become aware of the sensations around you. Feel your bed, feel your sheets, and your blankets, and your pillow. If you have someone next to you, listen to them breathing or the sounds that they're making. You know, feel the air on your skin. Just feel how kind of you're okay. Right now, you're okay. Everything is okay. You were allowed to sleep all through the night and you're okay. That's one thing. The next thing you do is take a few moments to go through the visual idea of your day, the things that you have on your schedule to do, and just go very slowly through them. See yourself in that situation. Like to say, okay, I'm going to get up and make breakfast. I'm going to drive to work. I'm going to be at work until noon and, meet these certain people and so forth. See yourself going through these things totally successfully without any trouble, without any problems. See yourself successfully moving through each one of these things and then actually, see yourself coming home safely at night and getting into your nightly routine at your home. So doing those two things of just noticing how good you feel, how safe you are, and then successfully going through everything in your day, that will set you up for a beautiful experience. And then whatever does happen, at least you have set yourself on a trajectory of, you know, calm, success, feeling good, and feeling like resourced, right? That's the way to start it. That's very important. So, okay, what we're going to do is take a short break for a commercial. And when we come back, I'm going to share a guided visualization with you on how to take care of that inner world and how to make sure that where you live and what you have within is able to be recharged. So we'll go through a guided visualization to help you recharge your inner world. We'll see you on the other side. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in and then deeply exhale. Imagine that you're at the place where you work. You are around halfway done with your hours of work responsibility, and you're feeling your sense of daily freshness wearing off. You're moving into the time of day when you have to make an extra effort to be present and aware. How does it feel to be losing the level of energy you began the day with? What are some of the telltale signs and symptoms of your energy drop? And now, in your mind's eye, envision that you have an internal battery with an energy level indicator that represents the amount of inner resources you have at the moment. What does your indicator look like? What is the level of energy left in your internal battery? Today, what has happened to drain this amount of energy from your battery? Think of how the experiences you've had and your reaction or response to those experiences has expended energy from your internal battery. Now imagine something that you do in your life that gives you energy, something that you love to do and that you always want to make time for. What do you see yourself doing? What circumstance are you in? Now see yourself doing this thing that you enjoy and that holds interest for you. And as you do, see how the indicator shows that your internal battery is somehow being charged again. Notice the signs and feelings you have when your battery is holding more of a charge. You understand that even though you may not be able to do this action at work, just silently holding the space for it in your awareness for a few minutes throughout the day can charge your internal battery. This is one way to care for yourself in your inner world. Paying attention to the level of internal energy you have is the first step. And now, with this experience fully intact in your awareness, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into this room. So I hope that that visualization was helpful for you, because when you have material come up from your own guided visualization, again, it's not me doing it. This is you bringing up whatever is within you, to kind of guide your own path. And so take whatever you found here with you in terms of how to care for yourself, how to charge your battery, anything you brought up, during that visualization. Use that going forward in your life. This is coming up out of your unconscious to help you in particular on your journey. on your inner and personal development journey. So hopefully you found something good and valuable in that, and that's a really valuable aspect of self care. So there's something else I wanted to read you. Our friend Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching. This is what he says: better stop short than fill to the brim. Over sharpen the blade, and the edge will soon blunt. Amass a store of gold and jade, and no one can protect it. Claim wealth and titles, and disaster will follow. Retire when the work is done. This is the way of heaven. And so Lao Tzu seems to be indicating that our self-care is about recognizing when is the work done? When do I stop? When do I just do enough instead of pushing, pushing, pushing? And so for that, I want to tell you the biggest secret of self-care, which is that self-care is always preventive. That means I do this self-care before something terrible happens. I do this self-care way out ahead so that I don't run into trouble later on. Retire when the work is done. This is the way of heaven. So self-care is preventive. And what does that mean? That means today, take a little time just to play. Today, make sure you rest a little bit. Today, make sure you spend time with the people that you love and give them your attention. Be generous with your time. Be generous with just what's happening. If you have a pet, realize the pet's not always going to be there. And if you love this pet, look into their eyes. I have a cat named Alvin. And every morning we have this routine where he wants to be fed, and he's so loving and beautiful. And I spend every day, every morning, taking just a few moments to just realize how lucky I am just to have this beautiful, beautiful little friend here for so long. And it makes it really, really special. That is time out of time. So self-care is always preventive. Do it now so that you don't have to respond to an emergency later. And that's really, really, really important. So when you're seeing self-care as something preventive, you have to be aware of your inner world. You have to be aware that I have a world where there's lots of stuff happening inside, and I need to take care of it. I need to take care of it right now. And so preventive medicine or preventive self-care means you're not in the emergency room. You're not in the hospital. It means you're enjoying your day. You feel a little tired. You take some time off to just rest for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You take a little walk. You do what you do for your physical health, and for your interior, your psychological and mental health, and your spiritual health. You take inner breaks too, like meditation, or a guided visualization, or a guided meditation, or some kind of positive affirmation that you've developed yourself for your particular state. So all of these things are preventive self-care, and not the least of which is taking time to play a little bit every day. No matter how old you are, you should never stop playing. Never stop, having that time to just be a human who is curious and just kind of moving through their life. Self-care is an essential aspect of living a healthy and fulfilling life. Many of us tend to ignore our inner worlds until we get a message from them that there's something terribly wrong and that we need to start paying attention to them. Better than that, though, is the practice of a healthy self-care before something happens, and paying attention to our inner selves simply because it feels really good. When we're taking care of our inner lives in a preventive way, it means that we've understood the importance of our inner health by giving ourselves the proper amount of rest, play, and self-compassion that we need and deserve. Other people pick up on this energetically, and so a person who cares for themselves in this way is a blessing and a benefit to all those they come in contact with. And that's our show for this week. Thank you so much for coming and joining me today, and I really appreciated being here with you. Remember, I invite you to go to my website, thegeniusway.com, and to sign up for a free membership to all the goodies that I'm going to be putting on there weekly. And until next week, I invite you to stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember that your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummell. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummell on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummell.